The room is quiet, but it isn't peaceful. Two people sit across from each other at the dinner table. They exchange practical words about bills, appointments, and tomorrow's schedule. Nothing sounds hostile. No one raises a voice. Yet something essential has vanished. The warmth that once made silence comfortable has been replaced by distance. The invisible thread holding the relationship together has begun to fray. Most people assume relationships end because love disappears. But decades of psychological research suggest something more fundamental often breaks first: respect. And once respect begins to erode, love rarely survives for long. There are 4 silent stages that reveal what happens when respect disappears from a relationship. They unfold gradually, often unnoticed, until the emotional damage feels impossible to reverse. The first stage doesn't begin with betrayal or explosive arguments. It begins with something far quieter: the loss of curiosity. Respect is more than politeness. In psychology, it reflects the recognition that another person's thoughts, feelings, and boundaries have value equal to our own. When that recognition fades, people stop trying to understand each other. Conversations become transactions. Assumptions replace questions. Notice how subtle this change can be. Instead of asking, "What made your day difficult?" someone assumes they already know. Instead of listening, they prepare a rebuttal. Small, dismissive gestures, a sigh, an eye roll, checking a phone while the other speaks, seem insignificant in isolation. Yet relationship researcher John Gottman identified contempt and chronic dismissiveness as some of the strongest predictors of relationship breakdown, because they communicate a painful message: your inner world no longer matters to me. This is why many couples feel lonely while sharing the same home. Physical proximity cannot compensate for emotional invisibility. And the tragedy is that neither partner usually notices the shift as it happens. It arrives one ordinary conversation at a time, until respect is no longer the foundation of the relationship, but a memory of how it once felt. But losing curiosity is only the beginning. What follows changes the emotional climate of the entire relationship in ways most people never expect. The second stage begins when emotional safety quietly disappears. Every lasting relationship depends on an invisible agreement. I can be honest here without becoming the enemy. Respect protects that agreement. Once it's gone, vulnerability starts to feel dangerous. Instead of sharing disappointments, people edit themselves. They rehearse conversations in their minds, then decide it's easier to say nothing at all. What once felt like openness becomes careful self-protection. Neuroscience offers an important clue. When someone expects criticism or humiliation, the brain becomes more focused on detecting threats than building connection. The nervous system shifts from curiosity to defense. In that state, even neutral comments can sound like attacks, because the mind is preparing to survive, not to understand. This explains why the same argument repeats for years without resolution. The real conflict is no longer about money, chores, or forgotten anniversaries. Those are only the surface. Underneath lies a deeper question neither person says aloud. Do I still feel emotionally safe with you? Without respect, every disagreement becomes a contest instead of a conversation. Winning replaces understanding. Apologies become strategic rather than sincere. Even acts of kindness begin to feel suspicious, as though every gesture carries hidden conditions. Perhaps the saddest consequence is that both partners often believe the other has changed completely. In reality, many haven't changed as much as they think. They've simply adapted to an environment where exposing their authentic thoughts feels increasingly costly. And once emotional safety disappears, something even more valuable begins to fade. It isn't affection or commitment. It's the quiet belief that the relationship still has a future worth investing in. That's where the third stage begins, and it's often the point where people stop fighting altogether. The third stage is the most deceptive because, from the outside, it can look like peace. The arguments become less frequent. The tension seems to ease. Friends assume the couple has finally learned to get along. But what often disappears isn't conflict, it's hope. Psychologists sometimes describe this as emotional withdrawal. After repeated experiences of feeling dismissed, criticized, or unheard, many people stop investing their emotional energy. They speak less, reveal less, and expect less. It's not always a conscious decision. It's the mind's way of conserving itself when connection no longer feels possible. This is why indifference can be more dangerous than anger. Anger still carries investment. It says, "This matters enough for me to react." Indifference says something far more unsettling. "I've stopped believing my efforts can change anything." You begin to see it in everyday moments. Good news is shared with friends before a spouse. Important decisions are made independently. Laughter becomes something that happens outside the relationship rather than within it. Researchers who study long-term relationships have found that strong couples don't avoid conflict. They repeatedly repair it. A genuine apology, a moment of empathy, or even a shared laugh after disagreement can restore connection. But repair requires mutual respect. Without it, every attempt feels less like building a bridge and more like walking into another disappointment. Over time, two people can continue sharing a home while quietly living separate emotional lives. They become efficient partners in managing responsibilities, but strangers when it comes to dreams, fears, or the simple desire to be understood. And that's the hidden cost of lost respect. It doesn't just damage communication. It slowly erases the sense that you're truly known by the person sitting beside you. But even this isn't the final chapter. The last stage reveals why some relationships end long before anyone says the words, "It's over." The fourth and final stage arrives quietly. There is no dramatic announcement, no defining argument, just a growing realization that the relationship exists more out of habit than connection. By this point, respect has been absent for so long that both people have adapted to its absence. Expectations have shrunk. Conversations revolve around logistics. The future is discussed in practical terms, but rarely with shared excitement. Sociologists often point out that relationships are sustained not only by commitment, but by a shared sense of meaning. Respect is what allows two individuals to remain separate people while still building a common life. Without it, that shared meaning begins to dissolve. Each person turns inward, investing more emotional energy in work, hobbies, friends, or private worlds than in the relationship itself. This is why many breakups seem sudden to everyone, except the people living them. The ending didn't happen the day someone packed a suitcase. It happened months, or even years earlier, through hundreds of moments when one person no longer felt seen, heard, or valued, and the other stopped noticing that loss. Yet this is also where an important truth deserves to be remembered. Respect is not the absence of disagreement. Healthy couples challenge each other. They make mistakes. They lose patience. What separates enduring relationships is that, beneath every conflict, they continue to recognize each other's dignity. They criticize behaviors without attacking character. They remain curious even when they're hurt. And they never allow temporary frustration to erase the humanity of the person they once chose. Because love can survive hardship, it can survive distance, it can even survive failure. But when respect disappears completely, love loses the ground it needs to stand on. The question, then, is not simply whether two people still love each other. It's whether they still make each other feel worthy of that love. Respect rarely disappears all at once. It fades through ordinary moments that seem too small to matter. A conversation cut short, a concern dismissed, a habit of assuming instead of asking. Yet those moments accumulate, quietly shaping the emotional climate of a relationship. The encouraging truth is that respect can also be rebuilt the same way it was lost. One conversation, one act of genuine listening, one decision to value understanding over winning. Because in the end, the strongest relationships aren't those that avoid conflict. They're the ones where both people continue to make each other feel seen, heard, and worthy, even when life becomes difficult. If this perspective made you look at relationships differently, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you'd like to explore more of the hidden psychology behind love, respect, and human connection, stay with us for the next documentary.